If there's one thing I've noticed a lot of this baseball season, it's been the increasing amount of empty seats at games. This epidemic isn't isolated to the cold weather we had in April, it's not limited to a city or two, it's happening in multiple places. Even if the TV contracts can allow the league to ignore it, this has reached a critical point for baseball. We can't deny it any longer. The MLB has an attendance problem. When there is an over 6% drop across the board, it's becoming an alarming epidemic. I'm not going to be looking for solutions. This sort of problem is multifaceted and there is no clear-cut way to fix it. That's why SeatGeek is here to help you save money on your next trip to the ballpark. With there being so many tickets available on the resale markets, this app will help you sort them to find optimal value. It sorts all tickets from red to green on a 1 to 100 scale. It can even give you a quick view from where you'll be sitting. If there was a time to get started and experience a night out in the summer, this is it. In fact, use the code word TREE in the link below to save $20 off of your first purchase. Remember, baseball's alarming reality is your game thanks to the glorious power of SeatGeek. Back on topic, what I'm going to be highlighting are the major players in this drop. And oh boy, there are plenty of them. To see one of the most gorgeous ballparks in baseball turn into a cavern is outright tragic. To be fair, I don't think you could pay anyone to see that on-field abortion disguised as a major league team. When you're 30 games under 500 and your best player is all but counting the days until he is free, there isn't much incentive to show up. It doesn't matter if the O's are desperate enough where kids enter the stadium for free. Total attendance for them is down almost 10,000 heads, and it's probably going to get worse for them. Did I mention that their fan base hates Peter Angelos? There's also that little tidbit. A team that has had issues filling up ugly-ass Tropicana Field is, once again, having trouble. There isn't much goodwill, as ownership traded away pieces and is trying to tank, albeit very poorly. The Rays themselves haven't experienced much of a year-to-year drop, only about 1,200 per game. But let's be honest with ourselves, there isn't much lower to go here. That new stadium in Ybor City can't come soon enough. If you were going to guess which team has had the largest drop in attendance, you would guess the Marlins, right? You would be surprised to learn that the correct answer is the Blue Jays, with a decline of over 11,000 tickets per game in a year. True, some of this may be because the Jays were riding an incredible wave of support during a championship window, but to see their fans abandon the squad so quickly is an incredible cause of alarm. I'm not saying those fans are in the wrong, the Jays are an old and inconsistent squad that only have an outside shot at a wildcard berth. For a team that had World Series ambitions, it's no wonder they're running for the hills. No deep explanation or excuses needed for this one. The team's deep into the tank and the few fans they have left have responded by abdicating or adopting a fatalist philosophy. They've also set a dubious record for least amount of people showing up to a game, which is the only thing they're going to accomplish this season. Some White Sox fans may be single, but their baseball team will always fuck them. This one surprises me. Cleveland is technically still in their window of championship contention, even though they'll probably blow it like they have the last two seasons. They've dropped a few thousand heads, but this one can use the cold of April and May as a legit excuse for it. Also, the Cavaliers' championship run may have put a dent in it. Part of me can see this number rebound once August and September hit, if only because they're all but a lock to win the AL Central. Unless they choke that away too. Another no-brainer as to why their attendance is declining. The team did nothing but castrate their dreams for years, and then finally realized that they had to blow it up and rebuild. Well, as much as their unmovable contracts would allow them to. They got to see their old ace Justin Verlander win a World Series for another team, and apparently that's all the reward Detroit will get. They've had the fourth largest decline among teams with over 7,000 fewer seats sold per game. This is probably going to get worse as more players are moved and Miguel Cabrera is out for the rest of the season. Tank time, Detroit. You may be asking yourself how a team that won the World Series a few years ago ends up on this list as well. Simple, losing a few of your better players to free agency, having a terrible show of your former glory being trotted out on the field every day, and having an owner who is a notorious penny pincher will do it. Just like Detroit, Chicago, and Baltimore, I can see these numbers getting worse. The Royals are already starting to sell off pieces, and their more recognizable names will be among those purged. Welcome back to the Dark Ages, Kansas City. We've kept the seat warm for ya. The A's have had attendance issues for a while now. They're in a decrepit stadium that boasts sewage leaks. Their team hasn't been competitive in a few seasons, and they are still a bit away from competing with the big boys in the AL. The A's have had a relatively minor drop of about 2,500 tickets per game, but they were already at a concerningly high rate of empty seats per night. Once again, not much lower they could go. Just like Toronto, another team that fancied themselves as having championship ambitions, yet has proceeded to suck whatever hope their fanbase had left. This number may drop a little further this season, but there is a lifeline for them in the next few years. They get that fancy new stadium that will mask this problem for a year or two before they deal with the same shit they're dealing with now. The future is projected to be full of the purest of mediocrity at best. As Baltimore and Pittsburgh attest, no matter how good the stadium is, if the product is shit, no one is coming. This one people could see coming from a mile away. Bruce Sherman, Derek Jeter, and company did what the last two owners did and blew it up to pay off outstanding debts. Who'd have thunk that trading off your most marketable faces and assets for pennies on the dollar would piss whatever was left of the fanbase off? You get the reward of now being the team with the worst attendance in the league with just under 10,000 fewer sold tickets per game from last year. And yes, you are seeing that correctly, that is a nearly 50% drop. Serves these fuckers right. Kindly fuck off a short pier, Jeets. The Reds have been tanking for a couple of years now with no end in sight and had a near historically awful start to their season. Is it any surprise why nobody is showing up to Great American Ballpark? This was one of the teams affected by that great cold spell of April, but they'd be doing terribly regardless. Just wait until the deadline when they trade more people. Could also get worse, if it can. Here's the thing about Pittsburgh. If you aren't winning, the city doesn't give a fuck about you. This is what the Pirates are experiencing. There were a couple of years where they didn't suck. People showed up in droves. Nowadays, they're selling off two of their franchise faces. Ownership is a lightning rod for criticism, and there seems to be no accountability in the organization whatsoever. All of this leads to the fans being pissed off and not showing up. The Bucks are now in the bottom 5 in sold tickets. They also don't look like a contender, so that doesn't help matters either. Just like Baltimore and Miami, people are pissed at ownership, which leads to one of the more spectacular drops in attendance over the past few seasons. Figures. Although you can try to find positives in all of these situations, you have to remember that these statistics are based on sold tickets. This is not an accurate representation of people coming through the turnstiles. If it were based off of that, I feel that these numbers would be a lot lower. It's not just due to the weather in April and early May either. How does that excuse Toronto, which plays in the Dome? How does this excuse Miami or Texas, based in the South? To be fair, there are some teams experiencing success in bringing fans into the seats. Milwaukee, Atlanta, Houston, and Arizona are thriving in this endeavor, but that's because they're winning and there is hope in those cities. Unfortunately, for about 2/3 of the league, you're seeing declining attendance. The MLB may be focusing on minor solutions because the TV contracts are still lucrative, but there will be a time when that bubble bursts. When that happens, all hell will break loose. The MLB has grown accustomed to being fat and happy when reality is about to slap them in the face. Fans aren't showing up anymore. The wave of new stadiums in the 2000s is nearing its end. People don't want to spend an arm and a leg to go to games anymore when they get a cheaper and sometimes better experience in their homes. For a league that is losing whatever parity it boasted about, is it any wonder people are tuning out? Your move, baseball.
Hits that one well to right center field. McCutchen going back, and that ball's gone! That had lift! Oh, wow! Brian Anderson Oppo has tied the game up with his 4th homer.